I'm from the Portland Seedhouse, who provided a good amount of some of these tomatoes. I do a lot of traveling and seed collection for seeds. So I go to Italy was my last trip 2 and some years ago. Collected about that much full of my bottom of my 65-liter backpack. So I don't know, it was like 15 pounds of seed. And
they let you bring it in?
It's food. Yeah,
When you say it's food, and
I'm
you
a gray area type person. It's like, yeah, if you're gonna push me in one area and say, because it's food. I mean, chili flakes are, you know, pepper seeds, but they're chili, you know. So when you have them all ground together like a pepper, you know, it's basically food. Beans, garlic, you know, all those things, they're food products.
So when you say it's food,
Correct. Yeah. So.
we were trying to figure out how to do it.
Yeah, so as long as you label it as food, I stayed at a lot of farms where I could repackage things too into other food packages or things like that that were sealable. If you're just bringing back like seeds in a bag, you know, I think that's what they're more or less scared about is because you're not bringing back some type of professional, you know, packaged item from some farm that might have been hopefully taking care of not letting disease spread and all those things. If you're collecting something off the side of the road, putting it in a bag and stuffing it in your suitcase, that's probably how some invasive spread and things like that too, and disease and stuff like that. But so I love tomatoes. Mark brought me on a month ago. I've been managing another farm in Sandy, but I have my own company, a seed company that we do a lot of specialty heirlooms. So you'll see a lot of interesting stuff. I have an Italian cucumber over there, some of the tromboncini squash, all kinds of really unusual stuff. Today we're just going to do tomatoes really quick. The easiest thing to do seed save is probably a tomato. One of the hardest things to do is actually then start it the next season, because that's kind of the whole trick. Is I always tell people saving the seed is easy. It's really you got to learn how to do the germination and learn how to do the propagation correctly in order to get nice healthy plants. So that's spring class. You guys got to come to that. But but we are going to teach you how to.
Our ears were perked up.
So you have to learn how to take the seed out and extract it and do the correct fermentation on it. Since this one's cut open, we'll just start there. Basically, every tomato is a little different. Cherry tomatoes, what I tend to do when I save the cherries, it's a lot different than the big guys, because with the cherries, you can just poke them and squirt them, and it's done. So literally, you can go through baskets and baskets. You just poke, squirt, and that's all you're doing. And then we put these into like salsa or sauce or whatever. It still has the skin on, but you know, it's like, you know, it's not the end of the world if you have sauce with a little skin in it. You know what I mean? So always saving these. You can go through, you know, hundreds of them like as quick as possible. You know, it does super fast. So and we'll make, you know, cherry tomatoes for saving seed. I mean, I probably have, I don't know, 300 seeds in there at least already. I mean, it's crazy the amount. Yeah. No, so I'm going to show you the next step process. So basically you're going to get it in this step right here. Usually they will ferment pretty well by themselves like this because there is enough acidity. But as the fermentation master knows, you got to add a little something to kind of get it going. And that could be just a tiny bit of water, just to kind of activate it, because you're basically taking it's off its neutral base or acidic base and then kind of turning it in a little funky. So it has just a tiny bit of water. Now you can see how much water I added to it. Not too much, because if you add too much, what's going to happen?
It's going to dilute it.
It's not going to ferment. It's just going to sit there and it's just going to rot, essentially. So you want to add just enough water where you have a good matrix of acidity and, you know, just water so it has an activator. What this is going to do now is this is going to take usually a couple weeks. You know, you can do it like after, I've done it after a couple months too, and taking the seeds out. But essentially what's going to happen is you're going to cover this with a paper towel and like that, and you're going to put that somewhere like right down there in my kitchen. And that is not a great place to put it because my kitchen smells really, really bad right now. So, but it is a great place to do it because it's clean. I can kind of control the flies. You know, it's like you don't have any like mice issues or rat issues because you put them in the garage. Sometimes people have pests and they'll go knock them over or whatnot. So essentially, this will sit for 2.5, 3 weeks approximately.
Yeah, exactly.
Really not under 2 weeks, because what you're going to want to happen is these have been sitting for probably about 2.5 weeks, and I don't want to tilt that. I want you to come see what that looks like. So that's a nice little healthy culture right there. You know what I mean? So you're culturing these. The whole point is, and if you go stick your nose in that, that's what my kitchen smells like right now. It's not bad, but it's not.
It's like yogurt.
Yeah, it's got a good funk to it. So what you're doing here is you're gonna rinse these off. What's gonna happen sometimes too is if you put all tomato in here and no water, all the tomatoes are gonna stick to this top layer. So that's why you put the water in there, so it kind of basically mixes it all up, and it lets all the good seeds float to the bottom.
Will the bad seeds naturally float to the top?
Yeah, so if you guys want to come over here.
Oh yeah, look at that.
You see, so some of them will stick. So this is one of the problems that, you know, you can agitate this, and then all the seeds will fall as they will. So sometimes they'll just kind of mess it up a little bit. It depends if it's a really rare seed and you really care about a couple of those extra seeds that are stuck to the top cap. Because there's a good amount in the bottom. You're going to see when we rinse this off, there's going to be a ton in there. So what you're going to do from here is you're going to take this, and this is our sink for right now. So you're going to take your sink, and you're just going to take the top cap and pour it off. So basically what's going to happen is you see all your seeds that are getting left that have the germ is not really good on them. So at the bottom there, you get to a certain point where you're like, okay, I'm starting to dump off quite a bit of seeds. So you get to a point where you're like, do you smell that now? Yeah. It's got a little alcoholiness to it. It's definitely fermenting. Yeah, it's fermented. So what you're going to do here is you want to keep on adding water to it. So each time you do it, I need to go get a glass jar so I can show you guys this. So usually I like to do it in here so you can actually see what's going on as I'm pouring this off. So as you're pouring this off, you're going to see all the seeds that are going to start to keep on sinking to the bottom. And you want to make sure to get them, you know, if you're going to, you know, if you want to do this in this type of cup, this type of cup is sometimes hard because you can't see. If you actually transfer it in something a little bit larger, you can actually go and swirl it around. And you're just going to keep on adding water, probably like 3-4 times maybe. I like to do this in the sink. At the sink at home, and you have your little spray, your little sprayer attachment on the side, because then you can go in and you actually agitate it with the sprayer, and it helps to kind of get a little bit extra funkiness off. But essentially, you're going to keep on doing this. Get to that point where you got right about there, you know, right before you start dumping seeds off. So you can see how it's getting clearer and clearer. And if I keep on doing this another 2 times, you're going to have a really nice clean seed to work with. And you could do this in a 55-gallon container with like tons of seeds too. So it's a matter of like, I'll do it in buckets like this with lots of seeds. So I have huge amounts of buckets so I can make, you know, proliferate a lot of them. Same thing, dumping off the top layer, letting some of those first ones come off, and then stop. So you know, you're getting to a point now where you can almost call this clear. You know, this is getting to that point where you're like, you know, that looks pretty good. You might do it a couple more times if you really want. What I do from here is
You break your countertop. That's what
you break the countertop. That's why plastic actually does work better, because when you do the plastic, it comes out and you don't hit like glass or anything. Because usually sometimes with glass too, you can add water to this, swirl it around, you know, and drain some of the water off and get the rest of the seed out if you want. It just depends how rare the seed is. I mean, that's a lot of seed for a home gardener. I mean, that's gonna be the next 7 years worth of seed for that one variety. So what you're gonna do is, I kind of like get the plate, let it kind of drain itself a tiny bit. And then just flatten them out. Get them. Just make sure they're not like completely stuck together. I mean, you don't have to get in there and like go crazy, but I mean, you can touch them if you really want. Something like that, and put that in a dry place. Usually like top of the fridge or someplace that's that's definitely not going to mold. If you put them outside in your garage, you definitely might stand it. With the climate change, as we start going into fall, we get cooler nights and stuff. It's probably too cool. You want some place that you don't want a dehydrator at all. I mean, because you want to set these seed at about like 3 to 4 days. They should be dry. About that in a nice room temperature environment.
On the top of
On top of the fridge, 70 to 80 degrees, even a little bit above room temperature is fine, but not really above 90. You start to affect, the seeds are curing too, so you're essentially, when you're taking it, you're allowing the germ to kind of set itself for maximum vigor and maximum storability, and so it's holding a little amount of moisture in there and saving itself. So if you over dry it, you're taking out that moisture to allow a good productive germ. If you under dry it, you're susceptible to mold and other things if you're storing the seed too. So you're basically looking at taking this off. I usually use a dough scraper. I have plastic dough scrapers that I use to scrape the plates. And I've been using paper plates. Don't use waxed paper plates either. You need to use something that's absorbing moisture and not newspaper. You can use large sheets of cardboard. That works well. We do that and we dry that and we put a dehumidifier in a large shop, and then we just have these trays that are on pallets on cardboard with the dehumidifier running, and so that will essentially dries a ton amount of seed pretty quickly. And it just depends on your humidity. So if your humidity is really high, and you want to make sure it's not too high, like above 55 is really too high. You want to try to stay a little bit lower than that. I mean, tomato seed's super easy. Just make sure you're letting it actually get a nice culture. The hardest thing to remember is to not put too much water, but not you're like, oh, I gave a lot of water from the tomato and such. You probably still need to add some because there's too much meat and stuff attached, especially if sometimes I'll take the tomato and half these and actually just squish them into it, especially the end of the season tomatoes that are like just split and nasty. It's not like you're nicely cutting those tomatoes. You're just squishing them in there, and so you get a lot of acidity, and so you have to add a lot of water to those to break it down. And it does help to do it in the sink with the spray agitator, because it does get it a little cleaner quicker. And the only other seed, this is called a wet method. Cucumbers you can do this way. Melons you can do this way. Squash, same family. They just don't. It just depends on how much gelatinous coating. Like tomatoes have a really huge amount of gelatinous coating compared to the size. Cucumbers have a little bit, and that determines how long you can ferment them for. So like squash, you can do for like a day, just to help it break off that coating off of there, and then you want to stop. Cucumbers like maybe 2 days, 3 days. Tomatoes at least like 2 to 3 weeks. So it's just because it's the amount of time it's going to need to break down that coating.
Will it have a similar mass of bacteria even after a day?
No. So that's the thing. I mean, with the squash, you're just essentially loosening things up. You're not doing any actual fermentation.
Basically, you would just want to remove the wet gelatinous from the seed.
It does a little bit with the cucumbers, a tiny bit, but cucumbers and squash, they tend to be they germ really easily, so in the water they'll tend to germinate if you leave them too long.
Gotcha.
So that's what happens with those guys. The tomatoes, I mean, you can leave them there till May and they probably won't germinate. And not in the light. So do not, when you're doing this part and you're putting this somewhere, not in your windowsill, because you germinate them. Because now they think they're in a hydroponic setup with wonderful 80-degree, So you want to put it like, down, or that's why I said top of the fridge. Sometimes it's a little darker in the corner there. Or put it like in a box on the top of the fridge if you have a really bright kitchen. Just somewhere where you keep the light off, because the light is not encouraging. Yeah. So for sure. Any questions?
So those will really last for 7 years.
Oh, easy. Yeah, it's not longer. Yeah.
Do you have any advice on the way to store them once they are dried and ready
So
for storage?
Storing in glass is usually the best bet. I do store a lot of things in plastic just because of spatial reasons, and then I tend to store them in another harder plastic container, just so they're like doubled up. Some things like beans and things, they'll get little borers and things, so you have to store them in glass. I've been having a little problem with borers right now. You go back and you look at your seed bag and it's got holes in all your beans. It's kind of crazy. So tomatoes, the only thing that mice love tomato seeds. So that's why I say, if you can do glass, because I've had a file cabinet full of plastic bags and paper bags and lost about half my seeds once. One of the third, second year or something, we were saving seed because the mice just came and they leave most of the seed, but they eat the germ. So they're sitting there incessantly, like little, crazy, critters, like eating every little germ out of all your seeds. And it was amazing to see, you go seed, like this many seeds, you get like 3 come up. And they ate almost every single one. It was quite amazing. So, and the moths, those little pantry moths, can be pretty annoying too. They can get into like corn, a lot of the cornmeal, because they have a lot of flint corns that they tend to. So anything that you imagine storing stuff in your pantry, you'd want to store. So freezing seeds is actually, if you freeze them, they will last longer than 7 years. So the thing is with freezing is if you are going to take them out of the freezer, before you do anything with them, you want to let them get the temperature. So don't take them outside, don't even plant them. Let them rest for like a day. Kind of let them get up to temp, and then you can go and do stuff with them. But that's essentially. You can. You want to not do that a ton of times because you're adjusting the humidity in the seeds too. Because that's what I said, when you're taking them out of the freezer, you're trying to get the humidity back to where it was in the germ. If you put it back in there and take it back and keep on doing it, it's probably not the best bet because you're just spiking and lowering the temperatures. But, I'd say once you probably are okay. I wouldn't have too many problems, but after that, so it's more of a long-term storage solution. So you have your stuff that you're gonna plant next year, and if you're not gonna plant for another 6 months. I might actually buy a chest freezer just for seed storage at some point. But your house fridge, there's a little bag in the back with your seeds. It's not taking up any amount of room. It's really not burden a home gardener. So, any other questions? Yeah? No? Sweet. Well, thank you guys. Yeah, let me know if you have any other questions throughout the day. We'll be here and eat some tomatoes. Yeah. Cool. Thanks, guys.
Actually, I have a question.
Yeah.
What is the difference? What I do, cut them off and take the seeds out and dry them in the sun, then use it next year. Because I don't go through what you do.
So yeah, that is a good question. So it's the erraticness of the germination. So it has that coating on it. You know how when you put tomatoes outside, or a tomato will just volunteer itself? It's just it's gone through the whole year of taking off that germination inhibitor from the weather. So the weather is taking it off, but you're just enacting that little coating inhibitor. So you're taking the fermentation is taking it off. And so you're getting a good overall germination. So if we did your way and then we did my way, and then we went and seeded at the beginning of the year, yours would take 3 weeks to a month, if not rot. Yeah. And mine would all germinate 98%.
So they germinate better this way.
Like 98% better, faster, stronger, disease resistant.